I'll call to order the meeting of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Town of Corte Madera, Monday, September 9th, 2024. We'll do a roll call. Chris?
Sure.
Here.
Here. Here.
Just push here.
Okay, salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, thank you. Okay, open time from the public regarding non-agenda items. Chris, do we have anyone from?
Anyone online, if you want to raise your hand to speak, please do so now. We've got no hands up and then no emails.
No members of the public here wish to speak. Seeing none, we will close open time for the public. Let's approve the minutes of the May 13th meeting. Are there any changes or additions to the meeting minutes from May 13th? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the May 13th, 2024 BPEC.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Committee member reports. Are there any reports from members of the committee this evening? Hearing none. We will continue to move on to discussion items. Our first item is the review of the complete streets checklist for Paradise Drive Gap Closure Project and the Sea Wolf to Prince Royal piece.
RJ, you.
RJ.
Yeah. Hey, Chair Vazio, if it's okay, we'd like to shuffle the order just slightly, just because we're lucky enough to have Craig Hartman here, who's been, donating his services and time to help with the Tamalpais Overcrossing project.
Okay, so we're gonna skip ahead to 6A, the Tamalpais Drive at 101 Overcrossing project. You'd like to do that?
Yes.
I think we can do that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, Chris, if you can boot the the presentation.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So want to provide an update. I think it's been, time flies, but I think at least a year, maybe a year and a half since we last, spoke to Councilor BPAC about this project. Obviously, it's a very important project. This is, we were lucky enough to work with Caltrans staff, and they were successful, and our team was successful, across the board, including council members, and getting upwards of $40+ million funded when previously they only had 12 or 14 million funded. So it's a great project. Craig Hartman was part of the original visionary team, and so it made sense to kind of bring him in at this juncture. And we met recently within the last couple of weeks, just given how some things are happening in kind of dealing with Caltrans, and just as we're learning more about kind of the pros and cons of the project that we'll get to here today. Next slide. So Chris, I'm actually going to share my screen if you can make me co-host. That way we can navigate the actual 3D version. Let's try that.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Okay, all right. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So just to orient everyone, this was the original 3D rendering done back in the CEQA mitigated negative declaration stage. This is a quick view of our existing overcrossing. Here's town center. This is Tamalpais. As you can note, we've got, 2 clover leaves here, and there's the village, and over here. But currently, bikes and peds, have to use traffic, or there's a limited 4-foot wide sidewalk on this side that then connects to this ramp here. So obviously we wanted to take this opportunity to, improve this for multimodal reasons and really to try to connect our communities. Through that, engagement effort, BPAC and council all rallied behind this idea, which is alternative 4B. Primarily consists of a 15-foot wide multi-use path. These bends here are really intended for ADA compliance because the bridge deck itself exceeds the maximum allowable. They, at one point of time, were going to make some modifications here, but they've actually kept this part of the clover leaf as it is now, so that you actually don't have to come to a complete intersection. So that's one thing that has been modified since, and I think is, by our view, is acceptable, but obviously looking for feedback there. But really where things kind of came to head based on, learning more about the traffic operations, learning more about just, some of the safety conditions. This crossing here, hopefully you guys can see my hand as I wave it, brought up concerns. It's shown as, if you measure it, it's about 140 feet, which is very long, much longer than the length of council chambers. And so the idea of stopping traffic and making that crossing has the potential to back up traffic considerably. And then, or if you allowed permissive right turns, that can cause concerns for, peds and bikealists trying to cross safely. So with that, Chris, we can go back to the rest of the presentation. You can. So we can go 2 slides ahead. So, this is another view of what I was discussing, and we've been working with Parametrics, formerly, David Parisi's team, kind of trying to figure out, what is the best solution for this intersection. Obviously we want to keep it as direct as possible, but we also want to put, make sure safety is really a high priority in what we do for this. So, they raised some of these concerns during their analysis, and so we brought this up as a concern to Caltrans, and we proposed 2 possible alternatives. Please, next slide. So one alternative was to extend the bridge deck and widen it further, as you can see there. And that would just allow for, that would address the traffic operations needed to kind of have all those things happen all at once without backing up. And our feedback from Caltrans was, that's just a non-starter. It's, a huge added cost. It would completely reset where they are in the design. They'd be set up to miss a lot of the deadlines they have with some of the additional funds that were found through the CHOP and IIJA federal funds. So they said, no, that one we can't do. Okay, so then moving on to the next option that we started with. Next slide, Chris. was to consider, what we've kind of been calling a loop within a loop. So this would allow bikes and peds to make a loop to avoid that cloverleaf traffic that is trying to get on to the freeway to head southbound on 101. So that's a big conflict. I mean, I think our goal was to have a project that really could work for, most ages, bike and ped facilities. And, I think I'd love to hear from you, but, I didn't feel particularly comfortable, recommending that as our solution for, youth and teens and others that, we hope would use a facility of this nature. So that's where this loop and loop concept works. This could be built to, or would be built to ADA compliance, so maximum 5%. I think bicyclists should be able to make that turn pretty easily. And then we also were going to try to consider some stairs. And so this is about the time we brought in, we took this to several stakeholders, a couple of our council members, and then also Craig Hartman, given his years of experience with this type of work. And he really had some great ideas. So next slide, please. Real quick before I hand it over to Craig, this is something that is, basically, there is some undercrossing, but this would just be a slightly modified version. We think there's a way to potentially dress it up, but from this view, it may look something similar in terms of where the bridge deck is compared to the multi-use path where it comes down. Next slide, please. And then, Craig, if you're up for it, please take over and share your thoughts. I know you had a nice summary here, and appreciate the work you've done. And take it away.
RJ,
Sure, thanks.
RJ,
Yes.
can I just interject here briefly? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Just wanted to introduce Craig. Actually did the initial design for this project that was submitted to Caltrans. He works for Skidmore Owens and Merrill. He did it pro bono. He's a resident of the town. He did the whole thing free, and it was approved by Caltrans. And he came in a few weeks ago and met to look at this, and he is now suggesting these revisions. So we'll say it again later, but Craig, thank you again for your generous donation of time and energy on this. We really appreciate it. But I wanted to make sure everyone understood Craig's background and why he's the guy doing this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bob. RJ, can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So just briefly, all of this has changed quite a lot from my first involvement in this. And my reason for initially for kind of proposing some radical changes here was simply having bicycled and tried to walk across this bridge many, many times over 25 or 30 years. And obviously there's safety concerns with these long unsignalized intersections, as well as for the buses for transit, for loading and unloading at the foot of an on-ramp. So anyway, quickly that the original concept I put forward was essentially getting rid of all the clover leaves and simply having a diamond intersection, signalized intersections with north edge for pedestrians and sort of family recreational bicycling, with commuter bicycling still on Talmadge Drive. Lots of analysis has been done by Caltrans and by others, the town and others around traffic issues. And clearly, one does have to consider also, traffic movement here. And as much as, desire would be to try to make this just a neighborhood street, the fact is it serves an enormous amount of commute traffic and needs to perform at a reasonable level for vehicular access on and off of 101. So that's how this has evolved. What you see here in purple is kind of the version that RJ was just describing, in which the purple section is the pedestrian and I call it recreational bicycling connections, meeting ADA requirements and having a direct crossover. David Parisi, as it was pointed out, had identified some critical intersections to the circle there And without going into all the details, if you can go to the next, RJ. RJ has already, if you can change the slide, has already described the issues. So anyway, where this has evolved is that there is adequate, those who have done actually the geometry calculations have assured us that that one can meet the 4.5% to 5% maximum ADA slope by doing a kind of a kind of a loop within a loop as shown there. The issue without having a stair is that then you're forced into doing that lengthy traverse. Everyone has to, and the lack of intuitive connection is a problem. So this allows you to, for those who are ambulatory, to take a straight line from town center to a village center and back, and then take the more leisurely walk with these the ears, if you will, that peel off of this to make the ADA connections work. Go ahead to the next slide. And I think it's important to know or think about the nature of these ADA pieces, that they can be more than just simply a kind of a sort of meeting the pragmatism of meeting the slope. And it can be actually a very interesting experiential architectural and urban design element. On the left is what we see right now as the idea of having the spiral that spirals and basically follows the geometry of the on-ramp, the southbound on-ramp off of Tamalpais with the stair, and you can see the directions of movement there if you're going from the east to the west. It also could take on more interesting shapes, responding to the existing vegetation, the trees, and the experience of moving through those trees. Again, we were up at a canopy height of these trees, so could be a very, very interesting walk through the trees to the canopy as you come down and meet grade there, and basically you're going under the on-ramp for Tamalpais. So I think it's it's not as quite as clear and direct as what we were looking at before, but I certainly I certainly understand and appreciate the concerns about the length of that connection that is otherwise coming off of southbound 101 and meeting Tamalpais there on the left. And so for pedestrian safety as well as for family bicyclists, it does seem to make a lot of sense to do this. It does mean some over/under in terms of the experience of the movement through here, but I think if it's designed well, and that is really a critical issue, is how it's designed, this could be a very lovely experience. And the other side, on the east side of 101, there would be likewise a similar kind of an ear or this sort of ambulatory ADA compliant loop, but it could take on a different shape, different characteristics. So it could be a very, very interesting way of moving across and through across 101 and also through the landscape. I don't know, RJ, if the other images were in here as well in your slide deck. Well, here's one.
This is
just
the last one.
This kind of diagram idea that shows kind of a simplified version of this. I call it the treetop meander, which is basically meandering through the treetops, through the canopies, and sloping down to meet the grade at an ADA slope. So that's a summary, and there's obviously a long way to go. And in the end, of course, the critical thing now is making sure that Caltrans is able to follow through with a beautifully designed connection here.
Thanks, Greg. And I want to echo Chair Ravazio's comments. Thank you very much for everything you've done on this project. And, what many of the slides that you just saw that Craig spoke to, he actually put together in less than 12 hours. So he's really been a champion and really there for the town. And so appreciate you for doing all that, Craig. Next slide. So with that, happy to open it up to any questions. Send it back to Chair Ravazio.
No hand
Chris,
online.
oh, sorry, I couldn't hear,
All
for a
right,
second.
there we go. How's that? God.
Yeah.
Turn that thing on, huh? Any questions from the public or comments from the public?
No one online and anyone in here, so.
None here. Okay. Okay, then we'll bring it back to the, yes,
Sorry, we got
sorry.
one hand up now.
We got one hand up. Okay.
Odin, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, I'm Odin Palin, a student at Redwood High School, and I bike through this area and on this overpass very often. And I'm very glad that this project is helping to address it. My concern with the loop design is that it creates a more indirect route for bicyclists. So a lot of people may want to just ride on the road for a more direct route. So that could be a concern. And I also want to urge you to make sure that this new multi-use path connects well with the path in East Corte Madera as well as to the bike route of Tailpice Drive and Madera Boulevard to make sure that those connections are intuitive for people to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
No more.
No more. Anyone here want to comment? Nope. Okay, then I will bring it back to the BPAC for comments, but I did have one quick question. RJ, you presented this to Caltrans, right? This revision?
Yes, so we have, and we also are meeting with them later this week, and we'll be asking for similar concept, but actually going to be asking for a wider loop path.
Okay,
They have provided some feedback. They're gonna, I think they're open to making this staircase as direct as possible. It might look slightly different from what we're seeing there, but the goal is to make it as direct as possible. They have a couple things to consider with respect to just structural, mainly I think where the stair is now, they said might be over a live lane, in which case they can't put a footing down. So some things that we're working through from an engineering standpoint, but they understand we want it as direct as possible.
but in general, they were positive and didn't see this as holding things up in any way.
Yeah, they said that they're open, or they can do the loop to loop, and then obviously we're gonna try to continue to work with them as much as possible on trying to incorporate some of these kind of greener features.
Great. Okay, well then I will bring it back to is there anyone from the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee who would like to comment on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Cheryl
Sure.
Cincinnati. Positive, thank you, Craig, for your work. And
Many years.
really happy to see, knowing that they're actual discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. No. Thank you. I was in the meeting last week and I'm highly enthusiastic about this. Craig, I just want to thank you for all the work you've done on this. And RJ was not exaggerating. Craig turned this around in literally 12 hours and got this back to Caltrans. So thank you for everything you guys are doing to help keeping this project move forward, because it's going to be just a landmark showcase project for the town and for Caltrans when this gets done. So thank you for all your work, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was item 6. We're going to now go back to item 5A, review of the complete streets checklist for Paradise Drive Gap Closure Project, Seawolf to Prince Royal.
Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. So we'll be discussing the Paradise Drive Gap Closure Project, Seawolf to Prince Royal. So this is kind of the last gap on Paradise to make a complete multimodal path from basically San Clemente onward and then all the way to the town limit with Tiburon. So, assuming that the project we're working on farther down the road gets built next year. So we've been consulting with parametrics to apply for regional Measure 3 Safe Routes to Transit and Bay Trail program grant through MTC. And one of the requirements to qualify the grant is that BPAC must review MTC's complete street checklist for the project. So just to, touched on this, but the goal of the project is to close a multimodal gap on Paradise Drive between the widened sidewalk we installed west of Seawolf Passage to the Class 1 path that ends roughly 200 feet east of Prince Royal Drive, as well as make additional complete streets improvements on Spindrift Passage. So here's a quick exhibit showing roughly what the project would entail. To the north on Spindrift, there would be additional safety enhancements, such as potentially traffic circles, curb extensions, or other basically traffic calming measures, because that road is used by a lot of kids going to the Cove School.
And if I could jump in, Chris, before you switch slides. Yeah, we did kind of go back and listen to our pretty robust discussion at BPAC. I want to say it was January 2022. That was helping to guide some decisions we were making on the Paradise Drive Complete Streets project between Westward and the eastern part of town. And so we did talk about at that time, where it made sense to put bikes and peds as we kind of work through this corridor. And nothing's set in stone, but there are, I think one of the key takeaways that I think there was a lot of strong support for was making sure that we don't lose sight of the work on Spindrift. That if we do a project on Paradise Drive, we still want to provide a separate facility for school-aged children to feel comfortable if they prefer to be on Spindrift as opposed to Paradise Drive. So that's why you're seeing kind of this, two-phased attack under one project.
Yeah, thank you for the background. So like I said, yeah, there's some safety enhancements on Spindrift, but the main part of the project is on Paradise. You can see on this map, to the east, we have the existing Class 1 path that goes on the south side of Paradise. And then to the west, we have our 8-foot widened sidewalk. So we're trying to close the gap between those two. So the idea would be to install a new Class 1 multi-use path on the north side between Seawolf and Prince Royal. And it says if possible, because we still have to determine if there's enough space to do that. But our hope is we can fit that in there. And then going along with that, you would go down to Prince Royal, across the street, and then you would cross Paradise there. And we would connect with a Class 1 path to the existing Class 1. So this would close the gap and provide a seamless path through this area along Paradise. There is potential to look at the other side of the road, but right now we're focused on the north side because that's what was in the 2016 bicycle master plan.
The other thing, Chris, worth noting, I think you and I took a peek at it. The south side is already pretty tight up to the right of way, whereas there seems to be, in most places, 10 plus feet on the north side behind the existing curb. So, there is, we think, more opportunities on the north side because of that.
Yeah, there likely would be right-of-way issues on the south side. The only benefit is that there's already a 4-foot sidewalk on the south, so it provides slightly more space if we wanted to widen that. But there's kind of pros and cons to both sides, so we'll have to analyze it more as we dive into the project. So, like I said, we need to kind of go through the checklist. I don't think I'm going to go into every box because a lot of them are just not super important, but basically this first page is just talking about our information and the project limits, which we've already gone through. So skip to the second page. So we already went through the project description. Let's see. So there's item 1 talks about bicycle ped transit planning. So this, as I mentioned, this was listed in the 2016 Corte Madera bicycle and pedestrian master plan. So we can check that box. And it's part of the San Francisco Bay Trail alignment. So it's definitely a priority project. Moving down, it's the project's contained in the NTC Regional Active Transportation Network. So you can check that box out as well. Number 3, safety and comfort. It was not, this area is not in the town's high collision network. But there's been several recorded crashes in this area. So we think it would definitely score high for this grant application. Moving down to the third page. Transit coordination. There's some Marin Transit bus routes along Paradise Drive, so we would coordinate with them on improvements. I think there may actually be a bus stop in one of the segments we'd improve. So definitely have to work with Marin Transit there. And then for design, we would be designing to the standards of the Class 1 bikeway. Let's see. And then, yeah, obviously we're reviewing this checklist with VPAC today, so we're able to qualify for the grant. So that's just a quick summary of
Yeah.
what's.
And to clarify, I think Chris, we had talked about this and we haven't gone back and updated the slides, but so I think it shows an 8-foot wide sidewalk, and we're gonna try to get a Class 1 in there. That's definitely the goal. It's not going to be a guarantee. We just, there are a lot of right-of-way constraints, but that's where we'd like to end up. And we'll obviously check in with BPAC as we go through design, as we have challenges. So that third box from the bottom right, we'll be updating to say Class 1 facility.
Oh yeah.
And then just something, I guess I'm hearing on my side, and I've noticed with the new building is, I think because I think the acoustics are so good in the building, if you don't speak direct and people are talking softer, and for that reason, if you don't speak into the mic, it doesn't pick it up, at least on the online version.
Yeah, just as a reminder, because committee member Longinetti came in late, you have to make sure the button's green on your microphone before you speak, or else people online can't hear. Okay, so that's pretty much wraps up that item. Is there any questions on that project?
Okay, so first we'll hear if there's any questions from members of BPAC on this.
So how much money might the 2 grants provide to the town is one question.
RJ, do you know what we're applying for on that one? I don't know. We haven't actually application yet, so I'm not.
We haven't gotten to the estimate portion of the application. So I don't know, but certainly it's going to be more than $1 million.
Okay. And also just to determine how much width is possible, has there been a survey done to determine where the right of way ends?
So no survey. We're going off Marin map at this point in time, which is the best information we have. The survey would be funded by the grant if we do are successful in the grant application.
Any further questions from BPEC?
Hi, RJ.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I'm just looking at a Google Maps street view of this intersection of this road, and there's no center median. Or is the town considering, either a K71 or K91 plastic bollards as a temporary median before you consider concrete to slow down cars and prevent? I've seen people do, drive in circles, almost do kind of sideshow at late night, midnight stuff around here. So I was wondering if a median divider was on the table potentially.
You're talking about on Paradise?
Yeah, right between Seawolf and Prince Royal.
We could look at that. The only concern I have is I think if we are to add a class 1 path, it's going to take up so much space that might remove room for a center median of any kind. Because to get it to fit, we're really going to have to squeeze the road.
Yeah. So I believe there is a small strip of median closer to the El Camino and Seawolf intersection. And then I think otherwise some of the striping right now is there is a gap. But to really answer your question, we haven't done that level of detail yet. We're just, doing a grant application so that we can hopefully get funds to kick off, outreach and design work.
Any other questions from BPEC? Yes, Cheryl.
I understand the considerations that lead you to select the intersection where people would cross over. It's basically right of way, but I'm wondering if you have an idea of traffic volume, if people crossed at the western end of the project, they might incur fewer conflicts with cars if they cross Paradise at that intersection. Or do you have that? Do you have that data?
Well, I guess, and are we talking about the Seawolf and Paradise intersection?
Yes.
Yeah, so and I don't think this is in conflict with what you're saying there. Yeah, there's one crosswalk. It is on the east side. So to your point, that would not conflict with people coming from El Camino, making a left-hand turn onto westbound Paradise Drive. And I think, look, it's like I said before, this isn't set in stone. Certainly once we get the survey and if we have differing results or favorable results and there is a reason to consider that, we can. I mean, I definitely agree if we did stay on the north, we would want to make additional safety enhancements to crossing at Prince Royal at a minimum. And so, yeah, really just weighing those two solutions once we get to that point in the design. And obviously we could bring that back to BPAC and have that discussion once we have more information.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, hearing, you have another question, Henry?
Trying to get used to the button here. I was wondering if you guys were considering just general traffic calming before this Prince Royal Paradise intersection, because I've seen, I commented previously of cars going over 90 miles an hour, especially with the electric cars. If we could somehow do some stamped concrete, where you pour a slab of concrete, you stamp a cobblestone design in it. So it gives feedback to the drivers and they slow down considerably. I don't think it's ever been done in the county, but cheap, easy concepts, and also speed cushions potentially. And what are your thoughts?
Chris and I were involved in a project on a bike path in Mill Valley Sausalito path that did involve stamped concrete. It's certainly an option. I mean, there's still I would say by today's dollars, it's still, probably $40,000 for what that's worth, whether that's a lot or little. it's for each person to consider. But I actually believe the lanes, and I was actually just trying to check it right now, are actually, I want to say closer to 11 feet already, which actually, you know, I'm actually looking at it now, right across from the parking lot of the Cove School. They're actually 10-foot lanes. So there already is, you know, some traffic calming strategies being implemented there. But obviously we could study that further as part of the project.
Thank you. Any other questions? BPAC, okay, hearing none, we will open up to the public. Is there any members of the public who wish to comment on this project? Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, here, let me.
Oh.
David Bell, Echo Avenue. Kind of echoing previous comments, looking at the map and just a suggestion on the map where there's a crossover at Prince Royal, just put on there that there's a light there and there's going to be a controlled traffic. I mean, if someone looks at that yellow portion, oh my gosh, how is that can be controlled? So just put on there that that's a dedicated crosswalk with a light switch. But I'm sure you've all, I think our members are, kids are gonna, you know, cross that light and disobey the crosswalk sign. So let's just be careful on how to slow down traffic, I think echoing Mr. Foss's point about traffic control. Thank you, over.
Thank you, David. Any other members of the public, anyone online or?
Oh, sorry.
okay.
There are no hands up online.
Okay, then I will bring it back to the BPAC now for any comments on this project.
So just two quick comments. I'm really pleased that Spindrift is included for any additional improvements. We all know that all the children that live on that bayside are most likely to continue to use Spindrift rather than coming all the way out to Paradise. Paradise serves a different population of kids that may be coming from the western side of Corte Madera who will continue to use that to get to the Cove School. And then also on number 3 on the grant application, in your discretion, you might add comments in that section that continues to refer to the high level of children's use to both the Cove School and other schools farther down Paradise.
Yeah, absolutely. We can add that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from BPAC on this? Okay, hearing none.
Well, Bob,
Oh,
just,
sorry.
I just want to reiterate, whatever consideration you can give to traffic calming measures, I think that would be very, very valuable here.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, RJ. Thank you, Chris. And we'll now move on to item 5B, Lucky Drive multimodal improvements.
Okay. So yeah, this probably actually should have been more of an update because I realized we went kind of into depth in this project last time we met. So we'll keep this one brief, but this is basically a multimodal improvement project on Lucky Drive. I'll just show the exhibit really quickly. Basically, just as a reminder, you know, we were discussing adding a class 4 cycle track to the north side of Lucky. So basically it would be a connection from the east portion of Lucky, which you can go to the freeway pedestrian overpass. And then that would run along the north side of the road to a connection to Redwood High School and then to Larkspur farther to the west, which is basically at the town limit. So Goal of the project is improve bicycle access and safety on Lucky Drive. And this update is basically just saying that we are going to be applying for a Safe Routes to School grant from TAM to hopefully pay for this project. So
Yeah, so this project, or this call for projects by TAM is the Safe Routes to School. Their large project category has a maximum of $450,000. And I think that's within range of what this might cost. It doesn't mean there won't be, a little bit of local funds on the top as we get through final design, but it's would be the majority of it would be funded by the grant if we were to get it. Based on the feedback that we've heard here at BPAC and from the community and through our Safe Routes Task Force and some of the folks that I think are here today from Redwood High School that are really, speaking up, we think it would compete well and would hopefully we'll be successful with the grant. And that's kind of one of the key reasons that we think it's a good candidate to put for this grant application is just it's really touched a lot of the different committees and groups out there, and there's definitely some support around for it. So
Thank you, RJ. Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions from BPAC members or staff on this? Yes, Cheryl.
Is this bi-directional or just one direction?
yes, good. Bi-directional, and then at where you see the crosswalk that's just to the north of Pfeiffer, the idea is that both of those bi-directional class or bike lanes would actually ramp up, to like curb height, which would help get people to cross and then be on the correct side of the road. And then the other thing that we have in there to kind of deter people riding bikes on the wrong side of the road is that diagonal hatching for what would be northern movement.
Thank you. Any other questions from BPAC on this?
I don't know if it's helpful, but if in your discretion you think it assists with your grant applications, it might be great to get a bike count at Redwood High School to show the total number of bicycles that are on campus each day, particularly when the weather's good right now, and potentially also the gyms. I've noticed that the gyms in that area, there's a fairly high level of bicycles in their rack, so that might help persuade Safe Routes to School to grant the application.
Any other questions? If not, we will go to public comment. Is there a member of the public who wishes to comment on this? Yes.
Hello, Ravazio. I'm wondering if I can get a quick opinion from Chris and or RJ about the viability of reopening Higgins Landing. I've been hearing so much about how it used to be such a popular place for high school kids to pop in a kayak or a paddle board or canoe or whatever they were using back then. And then it all rotted, the dock rotted out and they took it away. And when we looked at it previously, I think it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the ADA costs were so high and we weren't allowed to build it unless we could provide accessibility. But I walked it yesterday with an architect who won't be named, but it looked like there was enough space to put in a ramp. And if we could create a dock there right across from Redwood High School, maybe our teenagers would have one less thing to be depressed about. And I'm getting more interest in it when I mention it to people, or people often will say something to me about why doesn't Corte Madera have it there? On the entire coast of the bay, we have nowhere to put a boat in the water. There is another property over at Marin Country Day. That's a story for another time. But I hope that we can, I know it's not a pedestrian or bikeway thing, but it's a boatway thing. Can't you guys explain?
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Anyone online?
We got one hand up. Matthew, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks, Chris. Matt Hartzell, WTB TAM. This is a great project. Really glad to see the town go after Safe Pathways funding for it. Just one very small suggestion. On Lucky Drive, east of the intersection of Lucky Drive and Pfeiffer Avenue, if this project could include some new greenback sharrows on Lucky Drive from this intersection to the pedestrian overcrossing, that would really be the icing on the cake. I do realize that that is outside of the town of Corte Madera's town limits. It's in the county unincorporated right of way. So that would require some cross-jurisdictional agreement with county DPW. But I think it's a small enough addition that hopefully it could be fit in. And I think it would really fill the gap between this excellent project and the pedestrian overcrossing and the whole Central Marin Pathways project on Nellen that's going in right now, and tie it all in together. And it would just be a minor ask, cross-jurisdictional, yes, but hopefully the two jurisdictions could perhaps make it happen. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment?
No one else has anything.
Okay, if not, we will bring it back to BPAC for any comments from BPAC members.
Good luck with the grant.
Anyone else? I'll echo that. Good luck with the grant. This is a great project. Thank you. And that is it for our meeting tonight. Wow. Okay, and let's move on to future agenda items. Are there any suggestions, requests from BPAC members for future agenda items?
So dovetailing on to Pat Ravazio's comments about Higgins Landing, I'm reminded that the BPAC is also responsible for accessibility issues and making advisory comments to the town council. So if the chair and Public Works staff thinks it's appropriate, I enjoy seeing Higgins Landing being placed on a future BPAC agenda so we can sort of look at the long tortured history since the first dock was destroyed and what options may exist if that falls remotely sort of into our accessibility questions. It'd be nice to see that resurrected.
Thank you. Let's talk to Adam and see if that falls within our jurisdiction. I have one request, which I spoke to you about before the meeting, but I'll just briefly recap it, which would be a recap on where we are on the North-South Greenway project. You know, Tam is planning to finish off the section on Redwood, which I think is a potential disaster for bikers. And there's an option to go back behind the shopping center, land there. And I know there's some complications, but I'd love to get that on a future agenda so that we can look at that and figure out if there's a way to do that, because I think that would provide a much better solution. Anything else?
Also, if there's just a very quick update on the timing of both the extension of Paradise Drive out to westward.
As of right now, I could just answer that one. We are planning to build next year, but it's hinging on PG&E relocating several utility poles, and they've made very little effort. So it's a bit up in the air, but we're hoping next summer.
All right. So it doesn't need to be on the agenda. That was all I needed to know.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I guess we are done. RJ, thank you. Chris, thank you very much for all your work. Appreciate it. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.